Yeah.
did. And Thomas, can you read them? Because I got 47,000 things going on here.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on your name, Drake. I think it's a cool name to have because it's an ancient word for dragon.
Yes, I was told that.
Yes, and you can find it right online. Put in Drake definition, and you'll find it. It's an ancient word for dragon. So I think it's cool you've got that name. Somebody's asking about David's report today about the Federal Reserves. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Yes, I do. I've also got the original documentation that's going to be outed shortly. So there's people wanted proof that as the proof becomes available and is able to be outed, I'll make sure that it gets out, believe me.
Okay. The next question is, does Drake know anyone who has filed a suit at common law successfully pursuant to the Seventh Amendment?
A couple of them. It was minor cases, though. That's the problem. The problem also is that anybody who goes off on a tangent other than the basis of the problem is entertaining a distraction. I've tried to express this in simple terms by using the idea of not having a driver's license and that sort of thing. The only problem with that is that you get to go through this each and every time you run up against the problem. And even though you win, it takes 4 years. Now, I think it would be, in my personal opinion, of what I know of the law and what I know of the basis of things, it would be much easier, instead of having that same dandelion come up every year, to snatch it out by the roots. And this is the basis for what we are doing. We are changing the base premise of law, finance, and government back to the lawfulness that was originally intended in such a manner that it cannot be ignored. Now, David Wilcock has an article in his newsletter, also posted on the website, that deals exactly with this. I was allowed privilege to be in communication with certain people who actually are taking the actions. The whole of it is real. This is not a joke. The central banking system is now in big trouble. The big trouble that they're in is that they have been illegally using the monies of what are called collateral or global accounts, and all of the proceeds that they have garnered from that, to include any kind of profits, etc., now are being called on to be repaid. This will bankrupt the central banking private, and I'm going to make this perfectly clear, private corporate banking system. It doesn't have anything to do with the government. That is known as the central banking system. Not only here, but also worldwide. This is one of the objectives of the plan. So it's a matter of fact, and I will be putting documents out shortly.
Do you have any information, or can you comment on the arrest warrant that was issued by Vladimir Putin for the Rothschilds and Soros?
I noticed that they kind of took off in all directions when that was issued first in Russia. Then they got a criminal complaint issued by the World Criminal Court. Now, the problem with that is that the United States is not aligned with the International Court. Consequently, they can run around here free until we get to them. They are on a list, a different list, where charges will be preferred against them here in the United States, and hopefully that will take care of the remaining issue of their freedom and capability to cause problems. Now, something everybody needs to know, they're talking about elections and this and that, and oh boy, there's a problem with that. And that fact is that George Soros owns both the Democratic and Republican Party. If that'll give you any indication as to the corporate status of those two entities and what their intent and purpose is going to be, this will tell you that it doesn't matter which one of the witches that you decide is the lesser of the evils and put them into office, you're going to get the same result. One of the basics that's going to take place after this reset has settled down some are free and fully honest and absolutely transparent elections. There will not be any machines involved. You're going to have to learn to write. If you don't, you'll have someone who will accompany you as your signature. Who do you want to fill this office? You tell them, they write it down. You make your mark, just like they used to do in the Old West when a guy couldn't write. You make your mark, authenticating your vote. These paper ballots will then be counted by people who are so honest that and squeaky that it's difficult to be around them. It's almost painful. That sort of thing also should apply to people being put in office. So it's all changing, and everybody needs to be aware of what's really going on, and that's one small portion of it. The reason that Putin took such drastic action was that Soros had aligned enough financial control that he was going to take down or reduce the value of the Russian market and basically buy the country up. And somebody got wind of it, and consequently he was forced to leave rapidly, discreetly, along with a bunch of his people. And then even in the aftermath, if you look at that, this is not something that's in the paper a lot, but look at it in terms of Pravda, and you'll find that there were also several arrests that took place of the people that were helping him. So the house cleaning is going on everywhere. This is not just one place, but all over.
Okay. A two-part question here. Is it true that birth certificates are bonded and held privately? And how will the new republic be different?
Okay, yes, it's true. They are a surety bond, and the difference will be that you become a living person, and a fictitious straw man, or whatever you want to call it, entity will be done away with, basically. So that's going to be a tremendous difference. You will no longer have a dual entity where you have you are as such an issuance of stock for value that should accrue through your lifetime, which is what the birth certificate does to you.
Through the Social Security Administration. Yep.
Well, you have to remember something about Social Security, and I'm going to wade into that a little bit simply because I did some checking. Social Security and benefits for people who are truly disabled and or retired military are supposed to be continued. Now, this goes into the finance portion of this plan. At present, there are sufficient funds available to pay the national debt some 5 or so times over. Now, that's the $27 trillion everybody talks about, give or take. The true debt is only $1.4 trillion. So now you're understanding, just on those numbers, some of the fraudulence involved in what's going on. Most of the national debts and indebtedness of people are based on fraudulent means on a legal basis of taking double. Now, by that I mean you buy a house for X amount, and then you get to pay 3 times its value over a period of years. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that you, the individual, are the originator of the credit. You are your own creditor. This is how Iceland was able to do away with mortgages. So exactly. Now people understand it a little better. It's fairly simple, but you got to get the understanding out there.
There's another question, Drake. It says, are Drake's goals related to Benjamin Fulford's goals, or are they separate east-west plans?
Okay, first of all, I'm not going to denigrate Benjamin Fulford. He's done an excellent job of getting some things out. Of late, he has accidentally, by not doing his due diligence the way he should have, stumbled across supposed representatives of certain of these global accounts whom he was trying to work deals with. only problem with it is that these people did not have the authority to access or use any of the value of anything they were talking about. In other words, he was set up and did not see it coming because he didn't do his due diligence. Other things are taking place. I think Ben will get his goodies back on track and still be a major player. No, the people he was dealing with recently were not authorized nor given legal authority to do any of the things they were promising. So now you got an idea as to how far the impersonations and reach of the bad guys can go.
The next question is, do you have any information on how this will affect Europe?
Europe?
Yes.
Well, quite simply, the Fed has positioned itself in such a fashion that it basically owns Europe. If you'll check the news, you'll find that there's been extraordinary amounts of monies, freshly printed stuff, of course, shipped to bolster the European Union. Now, the problem with the European Union is that they are beginning to disagree with the idea that a financial interest can tell you how to run your country. This was what the new agreement was supposed to be. So far, it's not been approved. And the reason being is that people like the idea of being sovereign, they like the idea of being independent, and they like the idea of being free. So you have the European Union saying, well, we're going to have to be austere. That means that we're going to mess up your economy, and I'll give you Greece as an example. And in doing so, you just get to suffer through it for 30 years. Then, for the icing on the cake, they have convinced somebody, and I don't know exactly who might be uneducated enough to fall for this, that you can borrow your way out of debt. I'm sorry, folks, but it don't work that way. My bank gets all upset when I write a check and there ain't money in there. So, quite simply, not only is that not going to work, but they don't have the whole of the system. Now, this includes Europe and America, parts of Canada, South America, and other countries. The problem is that the central banking system, the private corporation, is now limited to the funds on hand. And the only thing they can do is transfer these things sideways. They cannot accrue further funding. And the problem, and the real big one, is that the system itself is not able to function other than as a consumer orientation. In other words, just like a Ponzi scheme, you bring in money to pay off the old. That sort of thing, they don't have the capability of bringing any of the new monies in because of the combination of the Eastern Alliance and actions being taken against them presently. So they're pretty much screwed.
Right.
Okay.
Was there anything else you want? I was going to say, is there anything else you wanted to address? Because it's looking like we've only got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah. How far down the list will the arrest take place? Might it include state governors or state officials? How can we know that all the crooks have been adjudicated?
Well, first of all, yes, it does go to those levels. Secondly, nobody will really know absolutely until these people start coming out of the woodwork, trying to either run, hide, or cover themselves. They'll basically expose themselves by taking actions of that nature.
Now, you've basically answered this question on other shows, and I'm pretty sure you've answered on this show, but I'm going to ask it anyway. As Iceland announced that all mortgages have been forgiven, will that happen here?
That's going to end up being the case globally.
Okay. Because if I'm not mistaken, we're getting off the debt system worldwide. Is that correct?
Yes, you're going from a debt system to an equity system. It's an extraordinary change, and it's going to screw up everything in terms of what people are familiar with to an extent, but they're going to like it.
And if I can just chime in, Paul Hillier, former Canadian defense minister, is talking about this in detail. So if